Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to Unpacking the Backpack. First off, I want to apologize if the sound quality is not that great. I'm recording this from my hotel room in California because I did not get to this when I was home for a mere 48 hours over the weekend. And also, I want to give a shout out to Denisha Keeler in Natomas Unified, one of the principals that I coach. And yeah, she keeps me motivated to stick with this podcast. And she's always telling me that I need to keep it more than 15 minutes because it takes her longer than that to walk her dog. So, Denisha, I better get a message that you heard this shout out from me on the podcast. All right, everybody. So today, we're going to talk about mindset. And what I hope to do is add a different spin to the topic. And we're going to talk about, how we really transition to a transformational mindset. We've heard enough about fixed, we've heard enough about growth, but what does it mean to really transform our mindset? And you might be saying, yeah, Eric, you're talking about growth mindset. Well, maybe I am. But, the concept of how one's mindset plays a crucial role in growth and change is nothing new. But there are different ways that we can look beyond just the fixed versus growth. And it's something that I really dove into in disruptive thinking in our classrooms. By the way, you can get your copy of that on Amazon. A mindset is an attitude, disposition, or mood with which a person approaches a situation. In short, it's a belief that determines the decisions we make, actions that are undertaken, and how situations are handled. How we think and act can help us identify opportunities for improvement. Mindsets can also function as a roadblock to progress. Our natural apprehension and fear associated with change inhibits our ability to pursue new ideas and implement them with fidelity. For sustainable change to take root and flourish, there must be a belief that our actions can significantly improve outcomes. The best ideas, the most effective ideas, come from those who constantly push their thinking as well as the thinking of others. So, in essence, mindset's a broad concept, and we can help align this to virtually any means to grow and improve. As disruption moves at a frenetic pace in our world today, it's vital to transform how we do things. Transformation is not a buzzword. If we continue to do what we've always done, we'll continue to get what we've always gotten. And when we look at the most dangerous phrase in education, that's the way we've always done it. Everything's working. Why change? So, coming back to the essence of our need to transform our thinking in this disruptive world, the right mindset can make or break this journey. So, like in all my podcast episodes, let's talk about some of the thoughts that I have to transitioning to a transformational mindset. And we're going to cover 6. And those 6 are: number 1, reflect daily. 2, develop routines. 3, be future focused. 4, go beyond your comfort zone. 5, acknowledge impediments. And 6, embrace the sparks. I hope the embrace the sparks piqued your curiosity, because you're going to have to wait until the end. So let's go to number 1. As we think about this transitioning to a transformational mindset, we have to reflect daily. John Dewey said, we don't learn from experience, we learn when we reflect on experience. Your mindset can change regularly, and this is a good thing. One of the most powerful tools any person has, as Dewey alluded to, is the ability to reflect on not only what doesn't go right, but also everything that goes well in relation to professional practice. People who possess a transformational mindset don't find the time to reflect, they make the time. Consistency is the key. So, as you think about your busy days, whether you are an administrator, a teacher, a coach, consider how you will make the time. And maybe maybe come up with some general questions. The questions that I typically use with my coaching hat is, why do we do things the way we do them? How can we do them better? And what tells us if we're actually successful? But reflection is only going to have an impact on your practice, and you're only going to shift your mindset if you are consistent. So, reflect daily. Number 2, develop routines. While daily reflection can become one routine, it's also critical to incorporate other routines into the fold. Herein lies what I call the secret sauce when it comes to changing behaviors that might have an adverse impact on progress. As a principal, I ensured email was checked first thing in the morning and before leaving for the day. I also made sure to draft my daily communication to staff and have this pushed out prior to first period. I actually had that draft done in the evening before the next day. Since my calendar was originally my nemesis, I made it an asset where time was blocked off after every observation to immediately write it up so the post-conference could be held the next day. So this routine of blocking off time in my calendar kept me sane. It also allowed me to really follow through on the goals that I had set. Without routines, very, very hard to do that. These and many other routines played a considerable role in developing a transformational mindset, as more time was available now to focus on the bigger picture. Another routine that I had was 5 non-evaluative walkthroughs a day. And I made sure I did that. And I also made sure that my admin team did that. But there are so many routines, and I'm not telling you to say, oh, go do what Eric did. That's not what I'm saying. But if we truly want to transform our thinking, transform culture, transform our schools, we have to develop those consistent routines. Number 3, be future focused. Oh, everyone loves the good old days, and we reminisce of how things were. Well, dwelling on the past and constantly putting our eggs in the same basket over and over has the potential to hold us and others back. Focusing too much on the present can cloud our ability to prepare for the unknown. In a disruptive world where exponential change is and always will be the norm, we must have an eye on the future. A transformational mindset embraces a thought process about the future, anticipates potential obstacles, and assists with developing a tentative plan. I wrote in Disruptive Thinking in our classrooms, don't prepare students for something. Prepare them for anything. Why is that critical? Because we don't know what that something is anymore. Think about when AI came out of nowhere back in 2024. The pandemic, we weren't prepared. This is why it's so important not to become complacent, not to just be satisfied with where we are right now. Sure, we might be doing a great job, we might be doing an okay job, but if disruption has taught us anything, it's taught us that we need to prepare students for present and their future. That's the essence of disruptive thinking. How do we replace, for our students, how do we help them replace conventional ideas with innovative solutions to authentic problems? So we have to look at teaching. We have to look at leadership. We have to look at culture. We have to look at all facets of what we do and say, hey, what could we be doing to get our students ready for that next step? All right. So we've covered reflect daily, developing routines, being future focused. Number 4, go beyond your comfort zone. One of my favorite movies, Don't Judge, is The Greatest Showman. I didn't want to watch The Greatest Showman because I didn't want to watch Hugh Jackman sing and dance. I wanted to watch him play the Wolverine. But in that movie, when Hugh Jackman was singing, and by the way, he's got a great voice, and I do listen to The Greatest Showman soundtrack over and over again, even when my friends make fun of me. But Hugh Jackman said in that movie, comfort is the enemy of progress. So let's think about this. An aspect of human nature is that when we are in a state of comfort, there's no real urgency to do something differently or better. These mental habits lead to the creation of comfort zones that we rarely step outside of. Why should we if everything is great, right? Or so our mind has us believe in a false dichotomy. The result is that we often then reside in a zone that is most comfortable, resulting in risk-adverse behavior that impedes personal and professional progress. What typically morphs are fallbacks on some of the most dangerous phrases that I've mentioned before, such as, that's the way we've always done it, or it's always worked this way. A transformational mindset pushes each of us to be honest about where we are in order to get to where we need to be to move needed change forward. Don't fall victim to being too comfortable, because that leads us to not really making the types of changes that we need to. All right, number 5, acknowledge impediments. Duh, Eric. This might seem a bit obvious. A fixed mindset prevents us from openly acknowledging what might set us back from achieving bold goals. Our fear of failure in the face of challenges can stymie growth, and even more so than being comfortable. Impediments will always be there, and that's a fact. The only way to move past or conquer them is to be honest about their existence. I try to write things out so that I can look at whether it's a keynote, coaching, a presentation, getting to know a district. And I always try to think about, hey, what might impede my ability to do my best work? But I also try to acknowledge impediments by doing audio reflections after I'm coaching or having conversation with leaders, so that I can really take a more proactive approach to be more effective at what I do. And acknowledging impediments, acknowledging where we might struggle or what might be a weakness, that's a sign of strength, everybody. That is not a sign of weakness. Everything is not rosy. Things are not perfect. There are always elements that are going to either get in the way or inhibit us from making progress. So be sure to acknowledge the impediments that you have, and either don't just work through them yourself. Consider how you can bring trusted colleagues into the fold to help you deal with them. All right, number 6. Embrace the sparks. So what do I mean by embrace the sparks? Motivation and inspiration come in many forms. No matter how they materialize, the result can be sparks that serve as needed catalysts for transformational change. While the yeah buts can evoke fear or a sense of comfort that inhibit growth, a shift in focus on the what ifs can serve, or I'm sorry, a shifted focus to what if instead of yeah, but, can serve as the fuel transforming a spark into something extraordinary. Never ever discount even the smallest of wins, as these often have the most significant impact in the long run. There are no small wins, everybody. A win is a win. But you got to think about, what lights your fire? What is the fuel that keeps you going? Maybe a spark is, being able to reach a student or reach a staff member. I've been seeing that all week here in Natomas, where I've been coaching. And I've made a point when I see some amazing practices, when I see growth, I see that as a spark. And I make sure to tell the administrators that I'm coaching to say, this is really great practice. I'm really, really proud of you. Because what I hope that does is I hope that begins to spark conversation, spark focus, spark maybe some smaller shifts to practice to begin to sustain this momentum. So again, sparks can be student work. It can be an interaction with a colleague. It could be, a really awesome exit ticket, closure activity. It could be how data is being used to group, regroup, target instruction. It could be a shift from an impersonal approach to one that's more personalized. But the sparks come from the what ifs. And when we are looking at times, we know things can be a little tough. So we want to, I don't want to say constantly look for the sparks, but when a spark materializes, transformational mindset, we embrace that spark, we use it to fuel the fire, and we make sure that we leverage whatever that spark is to become a bigger catalyst for growth. Don't fixate on what you can't control. Instead, put your energy and time into making tweaks to your thought process to unlock the potential and eventually the potential of those you serve and support. So this is my episode for this topic on unpacking the backpack. Denisha, if you're listening, we are almost at 18 minutes, so I'm 3 minutes longer. So hopefully your dog has been walked. And hey, I'm always looking for ideas to share. I also got to start bringing guests because I think the value of a podcast is not just to hear my perspective, but to bring some guests in. And I'm hoping to do that in the near future. Everybody, again, as always, thanks for joining and thanks for making a difference. Until next time, this is Eric Sheninger signing off on Unpacking the Backpack.